everyone. This is Dr. Scott Haggerty here with the Elite Family Chiropractic Podcast. And it is my extreme pleasure today to welcome Dr. Ron Robinson here from Premier Wellness Chiropractic. And boy, I could go on and on and on about this man and what he's done in his career. So for those of you who have never heard of Dr. Ron before, he is one of the foremost authorities in the field of chiropractic in pregnancy and pediatric care. And I'm going to let him tell you all about his story. But ladies and gentlemen, you are in for an absolute treat today. So Dr. Ron, thank you so much for being here with us. And first, why don't you tell everybody about yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Scott. I really appreciate it. This is an honor because it really does. It helps me really help people experience what I want them to experience when it comes to pregnancy, and really more than anything, not even just pregnancy, but for their family. And so, I'm glad to be here. So thanks for having me. So as Dr. Scott mentioned, I practice at Premier Wellness Chiropractic in Crystal Lake, Illinois, and I am really passionate about pregnancy and birth, but really passionate about how chiropractic can assist both mom and baby during that process. So I grew up in Northwest Iowa, a lot like Dr. Scott. Athletics were a big part of my life, and I experienced chiropractic for the first time because of an athletic injury, and that was during high school. And so at that time, I knew that I wanted to be a chiropractor, and my dream, honestly, was to be a sports chiropractor for the Minnesota Vikings. Grew up a Vikings fan. And so kind of went into that whole realm, was going to go to chiropractic school in Minnesota. And lo and behold, I met this girl who became my wife in undergrad. And we decided to take a completely different path and went out to chiropractic school in Oregon. And the school is called Western States. And for those of you that don't know, it's not a super sound philosophical chiropractic school, but it's a really solid science school. And while I was there, we were blessed to become pregnant with our first daughter. But like many chiropractic schools, we weren't really taught how pregnancy should be handled. We were taught that you give that off to the medical community and you kind of leave it alone and you just kind of adjust normally. And so that's kind of what we did. And unfortunately, my wife's first pregnancy was one that she never wanted to experience again. I think after 33, 34 hours of labor, the doctor standing on the hospital bed, pushing down on her belly to get the baby out, her first words were, "I don't ever want to do that again." And that statement right there drives me to do what I do today, is to help really educate, empower, and encourage and enhance what pregnancy could and should be for moms. And at the end of the line, it's because the health of the baby matters. And pregnancy can play a large role in that, not just the birth process itself, but how a woman takes care of herself during pregnancy. And so that's what I want to talk about today. Yeah.
I'm super excited about that. I know we were talking prior to starting the show today, and we have actually very similar stories with your wife and my wife, and different routes, obviously, to when we got into our careers here. But our path is so similar, which is why I think this is so amazing that you have developed this passion and this drive to go and share your mission with the world like you are. So obviously you're a family man. So why don't you tell us about your family, Dr. Ron?
So that's the really cool thing about this whole process. My passion started from our first pregnancy, and then by the grace of God, we became pregnant again. And my wife turned to me at that point, now living back in Iowa. She's like, "I want to do this a little bit differently." So she kind of toyed around with the idea of doing more of a home birth, but we were so new in the community, didn't know exactly what that was like. So we went with the typical OB hospital birth. But every time we went in, we asked ourselves, why are we doing this? Because the doctor's like, "Hey, we should do this." And we're like, "No, we don't want to." And we were kind of doing our own thing anyway. So anyway, long story short, we have that pregnancy. And then my my wife's third baby, our son, was the home birth that she wanted. And so this whole process that I talk about with a lot of families and a lot of expecting moms is that it doesn't have to be perfect from the get-go, but we know what pregnancy could and should look like. And so that's what we want to encourage women to strive for. So I have three amazing kids. Their ages 14, 11, and 9. I have 2 daughters, Sophie and Nella, and then my son Timon. He's our little stud wrestler that's what consumes us during the winter months right now. It's a lot of fun. We see a lot of field houses and gyms. So
I bet that you do. I bet
yes.
that you do. Taking in Dad's footsteps, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. It's fun.
That's amazing. So
And my wife and I share a very similar passion, and that's why I'm blessed to have her in my life. She owns and teaches a kids and prenatal yoga studio, and so in the world of chiropractic, we help restore function to the nervous system, right? Helping these kids get out of what we call the perfect storm. But she, in her mission, helps these kids develop tools they can take with them every day. So when they experience stress, anxiety, worry, they can turn inside rather than turning outside to something such as drugs and medications that so many kids depend on today.
well, that's so amazing that you do have such an amazing passion to go and help kids and families in the way that you do.
Yeah, it's fun. And it's we live it, man. We love it. It's fun.
It's what it's all about, right? Helping kids and families. So,
Absolutely.
so Dr. Ron, I'd like to dig into a little bit of the science, right? Because
Yeah.
obviously we both live in the world where we work with kids and families that are dealing with the perfect storm. So as all of us want to do everything we can on the front side,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about the importance of pregnancy, both for mom and mom's influence on baby's development, but also on the future health of the baby. So
Yes.
let's just go ahead and just dig right into the science of
Sure.
it.
So honestly, we could talk for days on this topic, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to boil it down to some really relevant informations that people can take home and say, hey, that makes a lot of sense to me. So the first thing that I like to talk about with moms is the education part of pregnancy, and why does a pregnancy really matter? There are a lot of research studies and findings that really suggest that the way a baby enters this world has an influence on the function of their nervous system. And as many people probably listening understand, that we have an aspect of the nervous system that we don't consciously think about, which is called the autonomics. And there are really 2 divisions of that, right? There's the stress or that fight flight mode, and there's that relaxation, that rest, digest, growth mode. And so many times, because pregnancies end up the way they are today in the United States, with interventions and pressure and dictated by a timeline from a doctor, an insurance company, a mom goes into this process extremely stressed. And what that does is that is building a foundational nervous system for a baby that is stressed. So if we rewind all the way back to the beginning of pregnancy, how a mom experiences her pregnancy is exactly what baby experiences through the process as well. So if mom is stressed and worried and overwhelmed and exhausted, that's exactly what baby is experiencing. So we often say what mom experiences, baby experiences. So that is really important, because we know that balance of that nervous system is what helps our body do what it's supposed to do in normal life. So, for example, I talk a lot about natural birth, and we didn't even really get into what birth looks like today in the United States, but we talk about natural birth. And for me, my wife experienced a home birth, and we just had one of our doctors in the office experience a home birth. We talk about, where are you most comfortable in your life? And most people are comfortable in their homes because it's an environment that you created, you set up. It's the right lights, the right colors, it's the right decor, all of those things. So your body is in a state of relaxation. Now, where most people have babies today is in a hospital, where it's bright lights and loud noises and stale environment and all of those things. And it puts us into that state of protection. Not only is it not necessarily your environment, but when we think of hospital, we always think of illness or sickness or emergency. And that's where we start this entire birth process. And so what that does is it shuts down a mom's natural production of a hormone called oxytocin. And oxytocin is a hormone responsible for activating and continuing the contractions during labor. And they often call oxytocin the hormone of love or the hormone of compassion. And when you're in a state of stress and protection, that hormone shuts down. When that hormone shuts down, the contractions aren't as effective. The process doesn't continue naturally. And then it leads us into this whole downward spiral of intervention after intervention after intervention, which puts a lot of stress and strain on the baby's nervous system, spine, and all of those things that we as chiropractors talk about, which then they take their first breath in this world in a state of stress. And if we as chiropractors don't have the opportunity to assess them and correct anything that we find, they live and develop in that state of stress from day one. And so that's why we have this constant conversation about educating what is pregnancy, what can it look like, and how can we help you find your path. And we talk about your path as women. It doesn't have to be my wife's path, doesn't have to be Dr. Scott's wife's path. It needs to be their path. Where are they comfortable? And really that's what really matters in the end. Is if it's in the hospital, great. Let's help them make that the best experience possible. If it's at home, awesome. We'll help encourage them find that best experience as well.
And I think there's a profound statement by saying that you have to find what they're most comfortable with.
Yeah.
But having the control and the education, I think, is such a huge thing, because I think in conversations that we've had with moms, I think oftentimes they don't feel empowered or educated enough to really have control or say over the outcome of what pregnancy and then delivery looks like for them. And so I think by jumping in front of this the way that you are, it's such a powerful tool set for moms and families to have so they can control more of the outcomes. And I know you had alluded to or had mentioned about what pregnancy looks like in normal circumstances today in the United States. Could you touch more on what it looks like in a normal setting today?
Yeah. So without giving exact numbers, what it looks like, I often, when I lead my workshops for pregnant, expecting moms in our office, I have them close their eyes and I have them envision what they see as pregnancy, what they see as delivery. And the things that often come out of their mouth are accurate statements are stress, bright lights, lots of people in the room, almost frantic processes, questioning procedure after procedure. They're told that they need this ultrasound and that ultrasound, and they're at high risk. And so today, the stats are that over 80% of pregnancies and births today are considered augmented in some fashion, meaning they are pushed to start without the natural process happening on its own, or they're intervened with because the process stops. And a lot of that goes back to what I was just talking about, is that balance of that nervous system, that fight flight, that growth and development. And if we're in that constant fight flight, our body's not going to keep producing the hormones and allow them to work the way they're supposed to let the body get to a place for labor to start and continue on its own. And so that's why we end up with so many interventions today, is that we're not in a place with empowerment, encouragement, and really the word that comes to mind for me is confidence. So many people so many women and men in general as well, don't have confidence in their body. And so that is why we want to help women with, there's so many reasons with chiropractic we want to help women, but one of the big reasons is back pain, neck pain, headaches are one of the most common complaints of pregnant moms. And I often state this in teaching other chiropractors, is that if a mom can't bend down and touch her toes or tie her shoes or get out of bed without a lot of pain, do you think she's going to have the confidence to go through this whole intensive process of labor without doubt? And if she has any sense of doubt there, that's when the doctor's voice of, hey, we can help you with this, or we can numb this, or maybe we just need to fast forward this process with Pitocin, those sort of things, get in and lead a mom to say, you know what, maybe I do need that. So that's why we want to help women, not just towards the end of their pregnancy, but throughout the whole entire process, to give them confidence so they know my body's capable of doing this. And then the other thing, sorry, I could go on and on and on. The other thing that I want women to have during this is not just confidence in their body's ability to have a baby, but in the confidence of their body and their mind to be a decision maker for the health of their family. And that's a really big key that sometimes we miss on, is that, wait a minute, if I follow into this, and I don't want to bash medicine by any means, but if I follow into this common path of just doing everything the doctor tells me, the first sign that we'll get to here in a little bit is, what if my baby's not nursing right? Or maybe my baby maybe they're constipated and not having dirty diapers, or they're straining, or they're not sleeping. the first sign of those things, they're going to go exactly with what the doctor tells them to do, which is oftentimes a medication or a drug. And then we just lead this life for these kids to be dependent on those things from a very early age. And that's one of the things we want to avoid.
And that was such a profound statement, because that is exactly our mission. And I love the fact that you brought that into the equation, because the effect of the result of the pregnancy and how mom experiences pregnancy has a direct, tangible impact on baby soon after birth.
Yeah, absolutely. And so without getting into the nerdy super chiropractic science aspect of things, but um, the control of the nervous system and what we talk about so much with the autonomics and where it gets a lot of its input is up in the upper cervical spine. And so you mentioned before we actually went live how Lena's pregnancy went with a lot of labor, and baby was oblique and a lot of compression on that upper cervical spine, which is jamming down on that head. And that happens so often for these moms and these babies, that there's irritation. And so some of the signs that we see that there's been stress during the pregnancy and labor are, not latching appropriately, or nursing appropriately when it comes to breastfeeding, not taking a bottle, only turning your head one side versus another, right? Which or their head is stuck, torticollis. We see some cranial distortions. Maybe there's like babies often start with a cone head, but maybe that doesn't go away. Or maybe one side of the head is over here and the other side kind of sunken in. All of those are signs that the baby went through an immense amount of stress during the pregnancy and the labor and delivery, that we need to get in and start correcting that, because otherwise they're going to grow and develop in a state that's not normal, and it's a compensated state, and therefore we continue to develop in that stressful state, which doesn't allow for that growth and development that babies need.
Yeah, Dr. David Fletcher, he has in his Insightful Chiropractor podcast actually just said exactly that same statement. He said that the nervous system is built to compensate and adapt and then return to balance and normality. And he said oftentimes what is happening, though, is that our nervous system, even from very young ages in the neurostorm, is that it's wiring in the trauma and not adapting and returning to a state of normal. And that's a powerful statement. And obviously we see this so many times in our individual practices, but I love when you can see examples of people who had experiences where there were the less than ideal, and then seeing the influence of what chiropractic can do for them, and then moving more towards those ideas. I know you talked about yours, but you were sharing with me about Dr. Matt's story. Would you mind elaborating on that? Because I thought that was profound.
Absolutely. So Dr. Matt's story is absolutely amazing. Everything that Dr. Matt does, honestly, is really amazing. He's quite a guy. And Dr. Matt's wife just last Friday had their fourth baby boy, and man, she's a saint. She's going to have a house full of craziness, but nobody perfect to handle it besides them. Their first birth was one that was really crazy, and I won't get into his whole story. I can let him share about that another time. But the two subsequent pregnancies were I wouldn't say highly medical, but very medically managed because of the first pregnancy. And so she needed Pitocin to start it. She needed her waters, they stripped the membranes and they broke her waters and they did all these things. And she went through this entire process because one, Dr. Matt at the time of his first pregnancy wasn't in chiropractic school. And the third time he was in chiropractic school, but still didn't get this entire emphasis of chiropractic and the nervous system. He got chiropractic because we were said it's good for pregnancy, but didn't really get everything she needed. And this time around, she's like, I want something completely different. She did everything that she needed to do. She put in the hard work. She did the prenatal yoga classes to get her mind and her body connected to what it needed to be, relaxed and growth, development, those sort of things. She got adjusted on a very regular basis. My wife and I host a birth class, really helping expecting couples prepare in the appropriate manner, talking about their fears and empowering them and doing all these things. And honestly, she had a lot of questions, and rightfully so, because she didn't have that confidence. She'd never experienced something. She had a lot of doubt in her body. But with the chiropractic and with the yoga and with the education, we got a text at about 11:04, 11:05 on Friday night, just saying he's here, and we did it at home. And that was quite a contrast to her previous experiences. And so the thing that we encourage every woman to understand and know is that your body is capable of more than you think. And two, what happened previously is not necessarily going to determine what has to happen in the future. And so this message is for any woman out there that maybe feels like I didn't get what I wanted, or I had a C-section, or I had an epidural, and I'm not sure I can do this again. The answer is you can, and I say that with certainty because I've seen it time and time again, where women have had this experience where maybe chiropractic wasn't a major part of their lives, or it was just part of it. They're like, I came in for a little bit. But when you put in the work and you do all the right things and you get your nervous system into a place of balance and where growth and development can occur, man, anything's possible. And so this little man entered this world just wonderfully at home, and he's just thriving. He's great. So it's awesome to see.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So Dr. Ron, you have just given so much information to our moms out there. And I know that many of them are probably going to be inspired because they're probably wondering what can they do to experience this for themselves. So I know that you have trained doctors all over the country. Yeah. So if there's a mom out there that's watching this that wants to learn more about receiving the type of care that you train your doctors to do, how would they be able to find someone who could help them?
Sure. It's a great question. We don't have an actual online database right now for people to search. So the best way, honestly, is to contact me on my social media. So Dr. Ron Robinson on Facebook, Instagram. You can message me. You can find me there. I'll give you my email address. You can email me, and I can get somebody in your area. I know you guys in Ohio have done some of the training as well, and so there are doctors, hundreds of doctors all over the United States that are ready and willing to help these expecting moms. So that's the first thing is really connect with your local chiropractor. If they're not part of what I've trained, have them get in touch with me, Dr. Ron Robinson on Facebook and Instagram. My email is ronrobinsondc@gmail.com. And that's an easy one. You can just send me a quick note and I'll do my best to find you someone in your area. But really, there are 4 E's that we talk about: educate, become educated, ask questions. That's my big thing that I tell women all the time. And sometimes they don't even know which questions to ask. So the first thing I tell every woman to start asking is be a pain in the ass to your doctor. Honestly, be a pain. Ask them, how does this affect the health of my baby? Like, those are just simple questions to ask. If they say, you go in and you tell your OB, I think I'm pregnant, they do a test and you're 8 weeks, they're like, hey, let's do an ultrasound. Say, well, how does that affect the health of my baby? And if they can't give you a black or white, if you don't do it, something's going to happen to your baby, or if you do it, you're going to know all these great things and we can give you the best care possible, you have to go with what you're comfortable with, but start asking questions. The next thing is become empowered. So find somebody, find your tribe, whether that's your local chiropractor, because most often that's going to be the person that's going to head that up. Prenatal yoga, fantastic. Doulas, massage therapists, acupuncturists, birth workers, all of those people, even friends and family that support your goals, your vision for your birth. I tell people this all the time. Your family don't have to be part of your tribe if they're not there supporting you. If they doubt you, tell them, hey, I'm going to shut my phone off for a little bit. I'm going to do my thing. We'll let you know when we're ready. Like, you can't surround yourself with people that doubt you, because you'll start doubting yourself. The next thing, become encouraged. Start doing the work. You'll start to notice how your body's capable, how it's changing, and really what power you have within. And the last one is just enhance the process. Get adjusted. Start moving. Start reading. Make sure you're doing all the work, and then you can be confident in your decisions through this pregnancy, so you're comfortable with the outcomes. But that's it.
That's awesome. Dr. Ron, I thank you so much, because the work that you've done and the training that you're putting out there is helping so many people. And I know that my family has benefited from it. And I didn't share this, but I'm going to take just a moment because I think it's important. My wife has had, we have 2 wonderful kids. My daughter, Olivia, who is going to be 8 years old in March. And she's the reason that we're a part of this mission. She was the less than ideal birth situation. As you mentioned, she came out with torticollis. It was 33 hours, epidural Pitocin, and we didn't really have the control. And we tried. We did the birth classes, we did everything that we were supposed to do, and things just didn't go the way that we wanted them to go. The second time around with Elijah, we did the prenatal care, the prenatal yoga, adjusted a lot, learned the protocols necessary to make sure that we had more control. And it was an entirely different outcome. And we had huge babies. Olivia was 10 and a half pounds. Elijah was 11 and a half pounds. And Elijah was an 11 and a half pound natural vaginal zero intervention birth. And he was out in like 4 pushes from beginning to end, from the start of labor to the time that he was delivered was less than 8 hours. And she did it with relative ease. I mean, granted, 11 and a half pounds, and there's no ease to that. But it's a difference, and it really and truly changed his experience with the way that he began life. Olivia was a child who had a lot of irritation, feeding struggles, all the things that you talked about. And Elijah was the kid who, the day he was born, right, in the hospital, he slept for 6 hours right after he had his first feeding because he was so at ease. And that was the experience that he had right from the very beginning, which, of course, I adjusted him about 10 minutes after he was born as well to make sure that any stress from birth was addressed. But, totally different. And specifically because of the kind of work that you're doing, teaching doctors to help moms to be empowered, to have control, and to make sure that we're keeping the nervous system of the mom and the baby as calm as possible so they can have the best experience of pregnancy and then best start to life. So,
absolutely. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. So thank you so much for your work, Dr. Ron. Thank you so much for your time today. This has been an absolute honor, and hopefully we can get you back on here again so you can share more about your passion.
Absolutely. Anytime. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. God bless you.